Yeah, what's good, y'all? It's your man, the Bigga P, and here to share my thoughts on last night's Showtime tripleheader. Before I go into that, let me just say that I am not a fan of tune-up tripleheaders. Um, and yes, that's what I am calling this tripleheader that I watched last night, because really, Broner and Matthysse are past the tune-ups. They had their tune-ups. Broner had his on the pay-per-view against um, the other Carlos Molina, and Matthysse had his with John Molina. So my thing is they should have either fought each other or fought somebody more high profile than they actually did. Berto is the only one who needed a tune-up since he was out for 14 months since he got knocked out by Soto Karass um, on the Knockout Kings 2 card. For that, I'll go into the Berto bout, Berto versus Upsher. Berto won the fight convincingly enough. Um, Pretty much, I think I gave him every round except maybe the second round where Upsher, you know, showed. Pretty much, I think this is the first time I think Upsher was able to rock him. Because prior to that, I was thinking, okay, Berto doesn't have his usual super ripped, enhanced physique that he usually has. He's had in this past like 4 or 5 bouts. He looked like a normal 147 pounder, and for a while he actually looked decent. He looked a little bit more fluid. Um, and then after that, and then in the second round with Upshur caught him with that left hook, and I saw him like wobble. I was like, okay, here we go again, showing the bits of struggle. And it was just, and pretty much just the same thing, because usually these fighters that have actually worked with Virgil, I mean they've shown slight, pretty noticeable differences in the style. Like Angulo for whatever reason, his defense got worse. Khan, offensively, it's pretty much clinch, punch, and Maros is the same thing to a same extent. But Berto showed none of this stuff. I mean, none of this stuff at all. I mean, he still squared up. He was still throwing wild punches. I was screaming at my TV at times for Upshur to actually like counter him, because he was throwing some really wild punches. And Upshur, and it's funny thing too, because Upshur, he had a jab. He was the times that he was actually working his jab. He was. I mean, he pretty much was actually doing his thing. I mean, I don't know, either he was not in shape for the fight, or probably later on, it was found he was just too gun shy, because I think he had Rod Salco was in his corner telling him all the right things to do, but he's just too worried about getting countered. But Upshur could have made this a much more interesting and difficult fight. Because, like I said, he was. I mean, for a guy with 6 KOs, he was still catching Berto several times, over and over again. And Berto, and what's more surprising is Berto. I don't know. It's just me. I mean, I don't say maybe his power is going, because he was still able to mark up Upshur's face. But I was not expecting this fight to go the distance at all. I was expecting a knockout or a stoppage of some sort in the later rounds. Um, I mean, what I saw pretty much. I mean, like I said, it was a workable. I guess it was something to. It was a tune-up for Berto, ring rust, so to speak. But for this type of opponent, I was expecting a knockout. In fact, this was the one fight I was expecting. The only fight I was actually expecting a knockout. He was just too many of his flaws were in the way. He was too squared up. He was still getting caught with punches. His hand was too damn low. But at least he didn't go into that struggle shoulder roll that he's like to do. I mean, that was kept to, I think, to a bare minimum. I think maybe he did it once in the bout, but he spent too much time on the ropes. I mean, it was just some other things. What else did I remember from that fight? Yeah, he was too squared up. He was still getting caught with punches. He was just wild. I mean, I didn't see anything. I think I mean, he still has a speed. Like, don't be wrong, he still had some good, decent hand speed, and he still had some really thudding. He had really things sound behind the shots, but the explosiveness of what he had is gone. Because I remember I was telling people, I was like, if I saw Berto show one bit of struggle in this fight, then they need to either feed him a whole bunch of stiffs, to get it, or to keep him away from my top 10 guy, and that's what they needed. They need to feed him some stiffs for a long time if they want to prolong Berto's career to fix some of these flaws, if they can be fixed. Because if Berto went into the ring with a top 10 guy, there would have been no question he would have taken another bad ass whooping. Um, but like I said, but I guess the positive thing is that Berto actually got rounds in. I guess that's a slight positive. So it's not like, and he, although stamina wise, he was throwing a little bit less. He had this on and off where he had a lull in his offensive output. But I guess, like I said, I guess you can't do everything. At 14 months coming off shoulder surgery and such. So, I'm interested to see where he's actually going to go after this. But I just don't see any victories over anyone in the top 10 in the welterweight division. But that's it. That's my opinion. But I guess we'll just have to stay tuned for that. The second fight was Matthysse making his against Ortiz. I didn't know too much about Ortiz. Don't recollect ever seeing him fight other than looking at his record on boxing. He was a banger. And this was a fight I wasn't really too pleased about, more or less because I think that Lucas could have actually fought someone a little more worthwhile. But the matchmaking at Showtime has pretty much been on a little bit of a, I don't know if it's a change or whatever. But but it is what it is. And Lucas is one of my favorite fighters. So we're gonna see, So I love watching Lucas fight. So. Unfortunately, most people were expecting like a slugfest of some sort because you're all like, okay, the guy's record, but that was not to be. The unfortunate thing with that is it was kind of marred in controversy, if you want to call it that. The controversy was Lucas hit him with a clean body shot. And I'm talking about clean as anything, and Ortiz sank to the canvas. And trying to milk the count, either now this is where here's where you either say either the referee fucked up and didn't know that his knee was off the ground, or Ortiz was just simply looking for a way out, or mistimed his count, or probably should have never spat out his mouthpiece. One of those things. But either way, unfortunately, it was an unfortunate, abrupt end, anticlimactic end to that fight, where you just wanted to see, what was going to happen. But hey, a win's a win for Lucas, and then hopefully, because I know in the post-fight interview he was calling out Danny, and I don't think he'll probably get that fight. Mostly because I think Danny probably wants to stay away from him. It's either that or Danny will go to 147, or who even knows what Danny's doing these days. But hopefully, Lucas's next fight, it's against someone a little bit more of a live body, more than Ortiz, who, granted, body shots hurt, but if he was really, if he really wanted to fight, he should have stood up at 7, 8, and and continue to fight instead of milking the count for as long as he did. So the main event was Broner versus Taylor. Taylor, of course, was coming off the win against Kareem Mayfield. And then, Broner, of course, as I mentioned before, was coming off that dull 10-rounder against Carlos Molina. This fight was much more competitive than I thought it would be. And it was mostly because of Taylor, because, again, there are some flaws. There were some things. Broner still got hit a little bit more than I expected him to. And there was still some rounds where he was taking off for defensive output, and then Taylor was just outworking him. And I really liked the fight because it was pretty technical fight. They both had an outstanding inside. They were doing outstanding work on the inside. And it was, for a while, it was like I thought this fight was really going to a draw, because Taylor at times was actually bullying Broner around, because Broner was spending a little bit too much time on the ropes, and then Taylor would, explode off of the combination, trying to get try to, like Marcus McDonough, and try to get him with that overhand right over his arm. But as we got to the later rounds, Broner did start to pull away as I think Taylor started to gas out. But still, it was still close only because, like I said, there were times, like I said, where Taylor, I think, exploded in the 10th or the 11th round again, and pretty much was starting to land some crazy combinations. And then the 12th round, pretty much Taylor needed a knockdown, probably the least to, maybe get a look on the cards. And then the final 10 seconds, Broner lands absolutely vicious, Hamed-like uppercut to drop him to the canvas, which pretty much sealed the fight for him. And that was probably what he needed, more or less, to say people, to stop the talks of people from saying, oh, no, Broner, this fight was closer than, Taylor really should have won. And the scores reflected. I think it was like 116, 111, like 115, 112. And those are perfect. Those were pretty much around the scores that I would expect this fight to have. I might have to go up for both fighters. Broner actually, like I said, although there were still some flaws, like he showed a much more improved and much more entertaining bout. And for Taylor, in a step up in this really big bout in his first main event on a fairly noticeable card, he showed. I mean, he upped his stock a lot, and I look forward to him making some, hopefully making some noise and eventually, becoming a contender at 140. The one thing about Broner though, is, I mean, I don't know if it's just maybe power or just Taylor just has a really good chin. But I mean, of course, he hasn't scored a knockout since he left lightweight. So it's like, I mean, is 140 actually the actual division for Adrian Broner? It can be, but like I said, he's gonna still need some more he's gonna need some more style tweaks, because the punches that Taylor landed on Broner, let's say if Garcia or Matthysse landed on him, Broner would have been in serious trouble. And even then, Broner was still was calling out Lucas. And I would love to see that fight. I would absolutely love to see it. In fact, I would try to make a trip just to go see that fight on whatever card it's actually on, if it's standalone or it's on a bigger card. Yeah, and I would, and at this point, based on this performance, I'd say it'd be competitive, but there's no way I would see Broner shaking off Lucas's shots like he was doing Taylor's at all. But overall, like I said, it was a decent night of card. Like I said, I just wish the Matthysse fight was a little bit longer, and ended more brutally. But I can't fault. I mean, the guy won, and a body shot's a body shot. So what can you say? So anyway, those are my thoughts about the card last night, and about to head out, get some food, because it's first football Sunday of the year, so I gotta do that and get back so I can watch my Eagles do work against the Jags. So yeah, until next week, that's Floyd, my down to two card. So yep, till next time, peace.